But what kept you going? What kind of support did you now have that made you apply to 1,600 jobs and you didn't give up?
Why is it important to you that other people that look like you or other immigrants in the country would come to the realization of what's possible in the tech space? Why don't you just focus on your own craft? Why is it important that there is that sort of like community awareness? You want to take other people on that journey. Why is that an important thing to do?
When I look at my time here in Australia, I've sort of seen a bit of everything. I've seen people that literally their actions, God sent them to me, I would say, if there's anything like that.
Oftentimes, when people would get into those roles, they start to work. Sometimes they just want to hide in their own shells. They don't really want to talk about things. They don't want to share what the journey looks like because, sometimes they're busy or they like, oh, I'm camera shy. There's a lot of things.
Happiness is perhaps you having a reliance.
Sometimes God makes you go through things so you can save other people from going through that. And you just never know.
One of the things I struggled with earlier on in my life was identity, getting to understand why I am. If you really take a look at, I'll cite an instance from the scriptures where Jesus was with his disciples and he asked them, what do men say I am? Peter said, I think you are the Son of God. And for me, that really captures something to say that your identity is tied to your relationship with your Father.
The Conversation by Sync Skills.
All right, everyone, thank you and welcome again to The Conversation, where we talk about life, career, faith, and everything in between. And I know I always say this, but today we've got another amazing guest. Now, Ola Aloba comes with wealth of experience, across business analysis and project management and several amazing things in the tech space. Is also a very, very great member of the Nigerian community here in Queensland and across other places, which I'm sure it would be more than willing to share with us today. But more importantly, why I need you to stay glued to this one is the fact that every single time myself and Noah would come on this call, one thing can be certain: it's value-packed, it's excellence-packed, and it's everything magnificent that you can ever think of. Isn't that correct, Noah?
That is correct. And one thing caught my eyes, looking at your bio, like you said, I am the propagator of good news. And I think that is a natural place to start. Tell us.
It is.
By the way, just Ola Aloba is married to a beautiful Ola Kemi, and they are both blessed with their amazing daughter, Zoe. How do you pronounce that? Zoe?
Yeah.
Zoe. Lovely. Lovely. So, I guess my question, propagator of good news, what does that mean? What should you, tell us what that means.
Thank you so very much for having me, Noah, at Title. I'm super pumped to be here. And it's, I've seen a few of your episodes, and I can tell you that it's powerful. I want to encourage people out there that if you've not seen those episodes, perhaps might go ahead and go and, take a look at them. They're really, really inspiring. I'll just start with thank you for the good work that you've been doing, and just let you understand that it's really impactful and, it's helping us,
Thank you
so much. Thank you for saying that.
So back to the question of the propagator of good news. For me, I think it has to do a whole lot with the person that I am. One of the things I struggled with earlier on in my life was identity, getting to understand why I am, and I mean, if you really take a look at, I'll cite an instance from the scriptures where Jesus was with his disciples and he asked them, what do men say I am? And they came back, some said, oh, you're Elijah. Some said you're, various opinions. Well, then he said that, and then Peter said, I think you are the Son of God, and for me, that really captures something to say that your identity is tied to your relationship with your Father and sonship, So for me, I sort of understood myself pretty much from, understudying my history. getting to know where my parents, my grandfather, he was an Ifa priest in the Ekiti state, up onto my father, and to really understand where the academia, academics rather from Ile-Ife, and to where I am at the moment, to really get to understand who am I really. But the most profound thing in my life has been, which has literally changed my life the most, or really determined who I am today, is the fact that I understand the relationship I have with the Father, where all life comes from. And that has pretty much shaped who I am today and where I'm going. And to now answer the question of propagator of good news, I understand that the most beautiful thing I understand from my own purpose in life is that my role is to spread the good news. Now, when we say good news, it doesn't necessarily have to be the good news of, the person of the salvation and the Bible talks about, because it extends beyond that. What we're talking about today is the good news, that the fact that someone can, aspire to, get to a greater place in their lives, be successful at what they do. That's good news. I mean, we could take it beyond that into more details, but for me, and I think that's what I really want my life to be. That's what I want to be remembered for, to say that I shine the light, to ensure that people come out of darkness, out of, wherever you might be, out of the ignorance and you might live in, to be able to identify things, be done a bit better, to improve upon your life and improve upon the quality of life you live, and that also affects your community. And pretty much that's what it's about.
Wow. I think that's super profound. And because when I saw it, I was like, okay, propagator of good news, that's a very interesting way for anyone to describe themselves. And I would really love to get into the details. And I guess the next natural thing to go to would be to about what would you then say you've devoted your life to at this point in time, coming from that understanding? What would you say you've devoted your life to?
Where things sit at the moment, I've transitioned a lot, I would say. I'm still transitioning. So pretty much what I mean, of course, we have to make the bread and work hard and make money and all of that. But what gives me the most joy is the fact that I can give to people of my likes. And, no, I can understand. Even the project that we're talking about at the moment is about the prosperity of our people. And for me, that drives me beyond, it keeps me up awake at night. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for me, I feel that's really what I want to be remembered for. How can we ensure that we bring prosperity, beyond just, because I feel that, take for instance, how many Black businesses are second generation, third generation? Let's see that. I mean, and for me, that's where I want things to be. I want people that look like me to be able to say also that, they can see prosperity. I might not be there yet, but of course I might know someone that knows the way. And there's a function of having gatekeepers and also understanding people that sort of understand and know the way. So that's what I feel really drives me, passionate about, and I want to remember.
Just on that, you mentioned gatekeeping. And I recall when I was having conversation with a doctor, maybe I'm allowed to mention Dr. Joy, amazing researcher, and she does content as well to inspire people. And when I was sharing about what we do at Sync Skills, helping people prosper, you mentioned prosperity to, through tech education, and we've seen amazing results over the last couple of years we've been doing this. She mentioned something like, "Oh, we're not gatekeeping yet. Like Noah is not gatekeeping," and that I took away that point of view. Like, where in your experience have you seen that a lot? That people actually gatekeep information, knowledge, whatever that can benefit the community.
To be honest, I've seen a lot of that. I have a sort of mixed feeling about this particular question because when I look at my time here in Australia, I've sort of seen a bit of everything. I've seen people that literally their actions, God sent them to me, I would say, if there's anything like that. But I mean, they in. I can begin to mention names or what,
Yeah.
and that I want to replicate. But at the same time, I've also seen people that perhaps just have that particular answer, but they were like, maybe you're not good enough. That sort of thing. And this was a type I was sort of, entirely, it's quite interesting. And like when we spoke earlier, I was talking about someone that said to me that, in Australia, you better just go ahead and do your care job. And if that's all you can do, and that's all, we've been here for 8 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
You want to get an IT job, where are you going to get it? That sort of a thing. And so, and perhaps they might not have that knowledge that it's possible. And that's part of the things we're discussing today. And for some of them, they actually know they have access, but they're just not ready to, And
that's correct.
You look at the numbers of people like us that belong to those sort of, boardrooms. Maybe not two of us, but the ones that are there. How much have they been able to handhold people that into those sort of rooms? That's number one. Then the second thing is the function of how have we behaved when we're pulled into those rooms as well. Because I feel that's evidence that I've seen. Most of us, we literally mess around with the relationships which has been established, which worked for us. When it's had to go over to them and just do it. So it's important that we understand as well that there's, the function of trust is important here. You have to keep that trust, Yeah.
Wow.
Powerful.
So, but why is it important to you that other people that look like you or other immigrants in the country would come to the realization of what's possible in the tech space? Why don't you just focus on your own craft? I mean, you're doing really amazing well. Why is it important that there is that sort of like community awareness? You want to take other people on that journey. Why is that an important thing to do?
For me, I feel knowledge is a burden, and why am I saying this? Because the fact that I know is not just relevant, and light in itself cannot benefit itself, except that it shines on something,
That's right.
and that people to enjoy it. So each time I get to know something and I get to walk into rooms, there was a conference I'd gone for, and we're talking about like 6,000 people that work in one of the big four, consulting firms, and very like a handful of us. I don't think there were, in my own set, 1,500 people. There were only 2 black men, and perhaps like 3 women. I think even think the women are doing really well, like 3 women in that space. And for me, I didn't like that. Do you understand what I mean? I want to see more of us in rooms like that, So in the real sense of it. So going back to the question that he asks, so for me, I feel that it's important. It's important to be able to identify. And when I look at my journey, for instance, as well, and I'm like, this is actually replicable for every person. I can imagine the amount of people that's coming after me.
Right.
And I keep thinking, maybe I've not known enough, then I shouldn't share my experience. When I also look at the questions that I keep getting and how important it is. For instance, I've seen a few people, to get business analysis jobs, strong jobs as well, cybersecurity space. In fact, gotten some jobs as well. But for me, the most important thing for me is the fact that when it came, I didn't realize that there was that much. Maybe because I'm just so busy in my own life, and got to where I was like, wow, like maybe I should talk more about this. Maybe I should share more about my experience. How did I now do? And that became an important part of what really drives me now to see that. Man, I think as much as we might not think it's important, there are people right behind us that perhaps have needs, and we have solutions. Perhaps we need to start communicating. And like I said to Noah initially, I said, I realized that we are much more connected than, and what that means for me is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's very profound in the sense that I will cite an instance from the Bible where Joseph was an interpreter. Now, Pharaoh had a dream. It was more like a burden for him.
Correct.
Joseph had a gift. Didn't really realize how important it was. No. But until the time they had to meet. So now I understand that the burden of that entire nation was upon their shoulders. You understand what I mean? So if we look at how everything ties together, sometimes you're doing things you don't really realize how important it is, but you just do it and keep it moving. I was, for instance, when we came about, Nigerian Association,
Right.
I needed 5 points. It was, I think during the COVID, I needed 5 points to get my permanent residency application.
Okay.
Now, my other Indian friends had that 5 points, and it was easy for them to just go ahead and, do the Nazi and get 5 points, and all of them got called.
Okay.
And I said to you, I don't know, people pretty much just need 5 points. But the good thing is now that we've been able to drive a project out across Australia.
Yeah.
Every other Nigerian who now needs a 5 point can get a 5 point.
Yeah.
That is
Nigeria needs 5 points. They were right in either Yoruba or Igbo, Nazi, and they could now have 5 points, which will determine whether they're successful at what they do. When you look at the importance of some things you do, might not just really know how much impact is creating.
Profound. Yeah.
I agree.
That we're much more connected.
I agree.
Yeah.
On that last point, Pastor Doyin, our last guest, or the second to last guest, said something about this. She said sometimes God makes you go through things so you can save other people from going through that. And you just never know. And brings me to my other point, which was the original reason why I asked you that question, is why is it important to you? Now, the work that we do at Sync Skills, we support a lot of people, as you know, to transition into no-code tech space and, go ahead and build their skills. Oftentimes, when people get into those roles, they start to work. Sometimes they just want to hide in their own shells. They don't really want to talk about things. They don't want to share what the journey looks like because, sometimes they're busy or they like, oh, I'm camera shy. There's a lot of things, right? And so we would try and educate them and say, hey, it's not just for you. It's for someone out there who may have this exact pain that you had at that point in time. And listening to your story could just be for one person, and that would make all the difference, which is why I asked you that question, because I wanted to know exactly, I wanted to get into your shoes for a second to see why is this important for you? And you're using like one of myself and Noah's favorite words, which is prosperity, Africans to thrive, more than just surviving in the country. What more can you do? Like you genuinely can thrive in lots of areas.
Yes,
from your health point of view, from a career point of view, from your social well-being, like all of the 4 pillars, that makes us who we are. You can genuinely thrive. So thank you for sharing that. No, I thought you wanted to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm just circling back to your point about also from the perspective of relationships. So some people, when we're talking about gatekeeping information, there's been instances where you may have helped somebody and they sever that relationship or they do something and for us, again, we always say we focus on building capacity, skills, so that we don't also build a community of people who are going into the tech sector and they begin to tag us as well, incompetent. Oh, those guys. Because the other day, a recruiter went on LinkedIn to check Jason Solution, which is the other company we run, where we build solution, and said, wow, so many people actually looking for a job from this company, because that's the vehicle of gaining experience for some of our students, right? You know how it is, and then they can get practical experience and then go and apply to jobs. Sometimes 2 or 3 of them are applying, to jobs, and recruiters are seeing that. But the good thing is that they are quality people, right? They can do the job. But going back to what you said, where we think that some people want to keep to themselves, keep their own relationship.
Yeah.
Have you seen, or do you also have advice, like when you also get the benefits for people, don't mess it up. Don't sever that relationship. Don't put people in a tricky situation where they lose that relationship or they lose the opportunity because of the help that they render to you.
Absolutely. And to be honest, this leads me to one of the very important things that I believe. I believe that trust is as monetary value.
It does.
When you take a look at businesses, what businesses do at the end of the day is like they have interaction with other businesses, with other individuals to be able to make.
Yes.
The first interaction, we take, for instance, you have a proposal. Right? The reason why someone's going to take your proposal is because of the confidence they have. Do you understand?
Yes.
The confidence is trust. Either they have seen what you've done before, you're leveraging on what you've done before, they can identify, oh, that we can trust them based on what is done before. Or they think, oh, maybe it belongs to a very, it's carrying a name that's very successful.
Yeah.
Or there has to be a leverage, and then, and what people, are used. So take, for instance, someone needs a job, and if they feel they can't trust you, do you know that at the end of the day, you're not going to get that job? And that's the reason why I didn't get some jobs initially. So like, hey, you're your referee. No one's refining that. I'm refining, using one guy that I did in Nigeria. I was like, how do we know Nigeria? So they
It's real. Yeah.
Second names that, they know or they've heard before, And trust is critical, and that's the currency that determines success in business at the end of the day. The biggest is going to be based on the trust you have for the person you're hiring or the organization that you're engaging. Do you understand? And so when someone walks into an organization and perhaps, based on the name that they floated when they were coming in, got that opportunity, and then they're now not as they promised, that becomes a big issue. You understand what I mean? And let's just take this back a little bit. And when we look at our people, I can tell you for a fact, I've engaged us a lot. I feel that we have a lot to also learn when it comes to concept of trust. We make promises we don't keep. We have contracts that we don't honor. And in fact, know us with the Nigerian time because we're always going to come late. And there's so many things that order around trust for us, and which I feel when you look at the capacity that we have as Nigerians, if it could perhaps just steal on the concept of trust, do a whole lot more than that. That's what I mean. So we now see it's good if we can perhaps just try and make an attempt to improve on being able to ensure that either we floated in the best keep out that that legacy, this names and what have that made, and then they are taking it forward to ensure that this we try to keep up. That's what's important. And I feel I'm not sort of calling anyone out. I'm just saying that it's a culture that I feel that we have to unlearn. Do you understand what I mean? And learn something else. Because when
that is correct.
Pretty much things don't really matter to all that, And I'm like, do you really know what you just not honored?
Implication,
You're
absolutely spot on.
Thanks.
Well, we'll come to that. But basically, just on trust again, recall when we were having, that conversation a few weeks ago. One big issues that we've seen, especially in the business world, right? You can't substitute trust, right? As you also alluded to. Now, there's a perception that Nigerian businesses, right? They are not like customer service. Because remember, I was talking about Oloja Hub, which is a platform that connects businesses, immigrant businesses with, ideal customer, like immigrants themselves. Literally, when I've gone to speak to some like leaders in the community, some of them have told me, no, this is not going to work because African Nigerian businesses don't trust themselves. They don't like doing business with themselves. Right? And that is why what you're saying is so big and so important. For example, we did a webinar a couple of months ago, I think. And somebody was saying, well, some customers don't trust us. In fact, I hire some people to work for me to make XYZ. And then when they got a notification that there's a shift available, they just left the work and went for the shift and left whatever they were doing in that business, right? And because of that, they couldn't fulfill the order to the customer, which will impact on the business. Some people say, oh yeah, I ordered for something and the person called, I needed it for an occasion, and the business owner called me like, yeah, I'm sick, I'm sorry, my child is not well, so I can't deliver. And the impact of that would mean that the customer will not trust you anymore. But come rain, come shine, if you, for example, place an order for an Aussie business, they will fulfill it no matter what, because they have business continuity plan, right? Which speaks to the trust. You must deliver whatever you commit to deliver it to your customer, whether earthquake is happening or not, right? So I just wanted to say that, what is your view on that? Do you have any experience you want to share from that point of view?
As much as I really want to share this personal experience, I feel like it's better I don't, because I had a very recent one about a week ago, so, but in respect of the person involved, I just feel that it's not, because it was so bad. I'd rather just, if you know to share, I can share with you in person, but just in respect to the person been able to talk about it. It was so bad that I almost lost a very critical relationship. You understand what I mean?
Wow.
I'll share that with you in person.
No, that's fine. So that's fine. You can you can have your conversations post that. So Toba, I was just like, when I read through your bio and just listening to you talk, obviously you and I haven't had a lot of conversations, so I don't know a lot about you yet, but I'm trying to understand, what do I need to know about your earliest years in Australia to understand the man that you had today? Run me through that.
Awesome. That's a beautiful question. Thanks, Tayo. So it was a bit of everything, I would say. I remember when I came here in 2016. I came here to study. I came straight to study international business. I'd gone coming for a split program, which would give me a graduate certificate and a master's of business analysis at the end of it. But what had happened was, after I'd spent the first 6 months, it was clear to me that international business perhaps would not give me a PR, because I think I sort of lied to myself when I was coming to Australia. I thought I was just coming to study, and when I thought about it afterwards, after I'd gotten here, I thought to myself, like, I wanted the best of unis that I could pay out of pocket, and all of that. Perhaps I would have gone to the US or I would have gone, elsewhere, but when I came and then figured out that I needed to transition, that was when I moved over to another university where I studied studied network security, so master's IT in network security, and that's what led me to the cybersecurity element of what I did stay. So it was a very tough period. Coming a few months before my wife, she was pregnant, and I tell you, it was a few months into when we were here, we had a baby, and and that's why I feel that I've also been a beneficiary of some really good people from the Nigerian community. According to Professor Akisomi and some other people, let's say, some other people that I met earlier, really just, they pulled the weight for me. And Dr. Dibola as well. It got to the stage that I couldn't even afford my school fees. This was first that, really much. She had given me like $6,000, and like, whether you're paid now, it was a tough period. I also remember one of these times we had gone to church, my wife and I, and I think we just had a baby. We had gone to church and my car broke down. I was driving at the time. So it was, they had to be pushing the car for me. Very embarrassing. It was really, really tough. I was really awful to tell you. Coming from where I was coming in.
You didn't pay for delivery though.
We paid some part of like student insurance, so which covered delivery for us.
Okay.
All we needed so yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So to be honest, it was awesome to have the right people around you. And I remember the experience in the hospital when someone just brought flowers, and for me, that was the one action that I thought like I needed to give it forward to
replicate.
I'll make the like perhaps going through that sort of experience. So they didn't know me. Someone had told them there was a Nigerian in one hospital, which hospital, and then they went. It was like I was shocked, and it was a time where every dollar counted. Between that, he had given me $10. I was like, you know, so it was a really good time to have the right people around. I tell you. So for me, that makes the community very special.
Important to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's. I mean, a lot to talk about together. We continue. If I also wouldn't leave the space. Yeah.
Wow.
Then I think the early days was more around when I finished from school as well, and I needed to do a year of a professional year. You know, where pretty much you will just learn about the Australian culture. And, you know, I did that. And that was the window that I had, which got me into a job because, you know, it was a time when I needed to take a decision. Did I go cybersecurity or technical cybersecurity or like visit the courses? And at that point, I remember having to print more of a bit, you know, because I had like an option to choose where I was going to do my internship. So I felt I was just going to do cybersecurity, you know. But when I prayed, I remember hearing, and this sounds funny, to be honest.
It doesn't, trust me.
It sounds funny, to be honest, but I remember hearing business analysis. I said to her, I said, oh, babe, I'm going to focus on business analysis. And then I remember that it was in March. I can't remember, I think it was the year COVID started. It was March.
2020?
During that time that COVID started. So I went to resume and they said to me that, okay, you wanted to do, and they said they couldn't find me a business analysis internship. Then okay, but they said they could find me a technical support role where I could do a bit of cybersecurity. I said, all right, I'll take it. But what had happened at that time was quite interesting, despite the fact that I thought that I'd heard God tell me business analysis there was that I couldn't even get an opportunity to get me in there. But I just did my best. It was meant to be a 3 months internship during COVID. They had fired people from that organization during COVID. It was really, really terrible. People from the roles, like me, a lot of people got fired. Yeah, they kept me. And at the end of that program, I got a call. I went to Canberra to renew my passport when I got a call that did I want to come back into the university, that they are opening an opportunity for me there.
Wow.
Now, here is coming from a guy who had applied to over 1,600 jobs. I didn't get a
I need to dive into that one.
I was good forcing my way in, you know.
Wow.
1,000 jobs. Now, how did I know? Because I set a goal for myself that every day I would apply to a number of jobs. I'll go and identify the newest jobs, number 3 days, and I'll go everywhere, find new ones, and I'll do it. So when I looked at, since I've been doing that, I've done 1,600 jobs already. The ones when it wasn't relevant to me, I was bombarding everywhere, just looking for that first opportunity, you know. And coming from the place where someone had told me, I could get like, so I thought to myself, like, then I just keep trying. I could be lucky. It's not my look at me twice. Yeah. And so it was a very, you know, special moment for me to think like I got my first opportunity, you know, and it was funny that, you know, they were paying me about maybe 49K. I was like, I'll take it. You know,
I'll take it. Yeah.
Like, I'll take it. But I know that this will change everything. So during that period, I've done like 2 different business analysis foundation courses. I've done ITIL. I've done Scrum Product Owner. I've done Scrum Scrum Master. Almost all of the necessary certifications that I needed to do, requirements, engineering. I mean, I've done so many programs in that space, and I knew that it wasn't going to be new for me, even though I was coming from a place where I'd done something similar to this before. A bit of in Nigeria. So I knew it wouldn't be difficult for me to transfer the, you know, the skill I had to be able to deliver as a business analyst. Now, the interesting thing that happened there was when I got in that role, another 3 months later, they created another position for me, promoted me, gave me like a bit of salary increment, because what had happened was I had a conversation with them. They had a problem. I would normally do my server management, scheduling, you know, cybersecurity, you know, policy management, the likes. Those are the things I was doing. It was pretty much technical. And I remember the CFO, they talking about, they had a project, they didn't know how to run the project, they needed a business analyst. I knew that that's what they needed, but they didn't know what it was actually. Who's going to, first to understand, current state, future states, breaking down gaps and likes. So they really didn't know what they needed to do. And so when I got there, I was like, okay, so I spoke to them for about 30 minutes. And the guy said to my manager that, please bring Emmanuel to the level 10 meeting every Tuesday. So what happened, what that meant was level 10 is where all the managers and executives sit and will deliberate. So in mainly sitting in those meetings, and I'll listen to all of the problems and I'll provide a solution I give to him. So I'll give it to my manager. I mean, of course, I had to, not, come out like, oh, I was also.
Yeah, I'm the one doing it, yeah.
But also, the problem gives my manager, he'll go and defend it. So it got to a point where he couldn't defend it beyond, where code. So they said, okay, what we'll do, they'll split your time. You do half of the time on technical tasks, half of the time on business analyst tasks. So that continued, and I kept doing that up on the time where they were like, okay, maybe we'll bring you in now into a full role. And on the holiday at that time, I'd applied for another role. I'd got a job before I go back on holiday. And he said to me, he said, this is why I hate going on a holiday. He said, because this is not on a holiday, it's something really
Something happens.
Because it's January, they were going to perhaps open an opportunity for me to, walk into a full year or like that. I got another opportunity. So it was a really good, opportunity to have step in. And after that, the rest is just history.
Wow, that was that was a lot. That was very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Just on that journey, you talked about applying 1,600 jobs and factoring the fact that you've gotten some advice, limiting beliefs. Hey, you can't get a tech job. How did you stay in there? Because I'm asking because we were in a privileged position where we support a lot of people, as you know, and we have different levels of resilience, right? If everybody can kind of like do what you're doing and say, I'm going to apply 1,600 jobs, things will change. That's consistency. Like that's you saying, I'll do whatever it takes, right? But what kept you going? What kind of support did you now have that made you apply to 1,600 jobs and you didn't give up?
That's a really good question. It actually, because when I look back, it wasn't like a time when it was as if I was 100% just, I had all the confidence, and I kept this was telling. Part of the time I was beaten, like I was like literally like I was like, man, I just have to keep going, And sometimes I have to kind of self to sleep, wake up in the morning and continue. So it was a point where I just knew that I couldn't stop. It's like it went off and couldn't stop anymore. It just had to go. Something just had to happen. And one of the things I would also say that really helped me is the concept of confidence. Now, when I say confidence, what do I mean? I understand that the concept of confidence is more like a belief as well. We're talking about limiting beliefs. Things are perhaps something you've accepted, that exists to be particularly true, whether you believe it or not. I already thought that said that if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. So when you begin to look at, how to make a choice, And one of the things that had happened to me, at the time was I just knew that I had to keep.
I had to.
So now, like I said earlier, trust, similar to confidence, because, confidence is perhaps you having a reliance.
It's got.
Either it is your
abilities,
it is some money you have, or it has to be your reliance on something, pretty much, because it's the feeling of belief that one can rely on. So for me, I see that more of a faith-related thing. And my journey with confidence goes both ways. There was a time when my confidence was high and I had great returns. My confidence was low and I slipped into depression. And I tell you that it was like pretty much like at that point where I needed to take it off from, relying on the fact that, I thought I was good at what I did to just to come true. That's sort of big thing. So as I am, I try to think I'm more spiritual as it is religious, because the concept of having a relationship to God by blood is beyond or what someone's saying that they say.
That's
you know,
right.
It's
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
point where you're like, oh, I mean,
Yeah.
and I have a better understanding now that I have a daughter to think like, no matter how terrible your child is, it's still your child.
Still your child.
Yeah.
So you understand like, God, put it in
Yeah.
you know, that's sort of the thing.
Yeah.
And you go back
Yeah.
to him and you fix things up by keeping moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So confidence was high at that time. I could see that, oh yeah, it was really helped me, even though there were moments of weakness, but I kept going, you know. So it was more of just being able to just, like couldn't go back, you had to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about confidence because I think that there's like different layers to it, and I'll really, really lean on you to share your experience on this one. So when you talk about confidence as an example, I know that there was a point in my life where my confidence was only driven by the things that I knew really, really well, things that I could fully defend. And then I knew that wasn't sustainable. What happens? Because no one's an island of knowledge. Like even if I didn't know something, my confidence shouldn't shift, right? What's your view on having like 100% confidence when you're very adept at that particular thing, when you have the skills or you have the knowledge, versus reduction in confidence when you're in a difficult situation? What's your advice for people on, to navigate that sort of situation? Because sometimes people go into interviews, for example, they know exactly what they need to say. And up until the point that they ask them something that seems a little bit off, the confidence is there. But as soon as the question drops, it reduces, and that's noticeable. What's your strategies for people to manage that?
So I don't know how much time we have, but I'd like to share a bit of my story and where I dropped confidence and how it affected me negatively.
Yeah, for it.
We're referring.
Yeah, I was a senior consultant, and I was at this company. I got moved to another company where I was managing a cybersecurity project, and it started well. The business analysis planning, you understand what I mean?
Yes.
It was so good. Everything went well. The strategy sessions went out well. Everything went, we drill our requirements. Everything was going good. It was going good. It started well. All of a sudden, I flagged a risk. And then my manager at work, which is my organization, said to me that, okay, I can discuss it with my project manager, because normally we were meant to deliver as a team. So whether they were here, they weren't here, we needed to deliberate it.
Yeah.
Because it was as good as they were in that project, but of course we were not there physically because we do reports and they bring back aid. So, and then I said to her, okay, so I reported to that project team, and that was fine. But they now had a meeting, which was on a Friday night. Sorry, Friday evening, they had a meeting. And then the next thing was, the lady said to me that, oh, okay, called me up on the phone and said, oh, Emmanuel, you don't have to come back to that company on Monday. And they said, okay. And I said, right, well, you can come into the office. We want to have a chat in the office. And I got into the office, and for some reason, I got fired. This was a project that was going so good. I could already had moved some small senior people out of that room because I could deliver well. I could relate to the project. I could deliver the project pretty much well. And that tanked my confidence. And, at that point, I couldn't get closure. Because what exactly happened? I didn't have
do?
explanation. Someone told me what happened. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And then I got fired. I was like, and no one was listening to, no one was even asking me a question, oh, what did you do, or how did you do, or that was it.
Wow.
So I I lost confidence totally. And for me, that makes that when I got home, I would have days that it would feel like I was hearing
flashback,
noise in my ears. Everything was dark. I couldn't see.
No.
I would not be able to get myself out of there. It was so terrible.
Oh no. Wow.
It was so terrible that it was like I was in a hole. And that was how I got to understand that it was depression, because I really didn't know what depression was up until that point. I was just in a hole that I couldn't help myself out of. So at that point, and my wife, she would wake up in the morning, she would try her best. And I couldn't my energy, the vibration I had was flat. That I could not even move my fingers. I was just really flat. And if you understand wealth creation and you understand that it's a high intensity, game, you've got to be, really active to be successful. So At that point, my confidence went to zero. In fact, it was deficit. And I was in there for a few months. But I remember at that time, one of the guys I worked with from that previous organization, I just rang me, they were doing a project, a 6 months project, brought me on as a consultant to be on that project. Even still, I was trying to move jobs. I would apply for jobs. They would see my resume. They knew they would call me up and I would invite me for interviews. Interviews. I'll flunk it. Yeah, and a few of things happened like that. And the only thing that got me out of that was when I began to understand pretty much what was going on with me. And what happened to me at the time was I froze, which was pretty much fear. Like, it was zero.
Fear of failing.
So when you look at some footballers, you could see, I don't know if you follow football, there was a time when Albert, before he got into Arsenal, there was a time when you wouldn't be able to score goals. Not like he wasn't a good striker already, but this was a guy that won Champions League and his confidence was really high, had some really good numbers, but then he would just be right there, but just not be able to compete. And that in itself was where I was. And I understand that same thing sort of happens to a whole lot of us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone is out there, but there's a point where you might be at a point where you're trying to just make things happen and you've lost confidence. For me, what worked for me was the fact that I had to begin to understand what exactly was going on with it. First, to understand I lost belief. And belief is so critical. Like confidence, like I said earlier, the trust. Confidence also has a mutual value.
It is.
You'll walk into a room and you'll understand that your energy is contagious.
Yes.
The thing will always mirror the energy coming into the room.
That's correct.
When you go into the room and you don't have that confidence, everyone will understand that, you have a proposition, you're putting the proposition in front of, a company you want to, and you don't have that confidence. They're like, and this guy deliver on what is speaking.
Exactly. Exactly.
So conversion is really very, dependent on the confidence that you have. I remember what the scripture says, that talks about, cast not away your confidence. It hasn't reached your competence of reward. That in itself is very true because the reward you get, like I said earlier, confidence has a monetary value.
It does.
It does.
Same one with trust. There's some things that would never happen if you don't have that confidence.
I agree. I agree.
So when we're talking about the belief in itself, it's more like a reliance on something. Actually, what are we relying on? Is it my knowledge that I have? It might be that for the confidence, and perhaps you would appear confident, and then you get what you need. So I remember, that period I walked into the rooms was just flat. But what changed was when I now began to understand that I was on the other side of faith because I was fearful that I was frozen. I did not move. You understand? Because fear actually freezes you.
It does.
Yes. It's also an action. As much as faith is an action, fear is an action. Only that you're just self-sabotaging. You understand? It makes you walk against your own self. You might be at a point where you have all it takes to deliver, but you will literally walk against the actions that should help you deliver. So I got into that point and I would now offer an interview. So what happened to me then was I remember, so I figured out, okay, so what's the other side of it? It's faith. Well, I understand, how do I build faith? Does my confidence go up? My confidence has to leave me or what I can do. It has to be mental. How do I build confidence or know or understand what God can do to me? That was where I understood the power of confession. Now, that was the only thing that single-handedly got me out of depression. The power of confession. So I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't feel like it, but I'll say, today is the best day ever of my life.
Affirmations.
Today is the best day ever of my life. As I'm walking out, wherever my name is being called, calling great things. And I would begin to sing those things. And I started believing it.
Yes.
I would say it and I started believing what I was saying. When Bible talks about faith comes by hearing, it's not even by hearing what other people are saying, it's by hearing what you are saying yourself. So now understand that the power of your tongue in itself doesn't only give a command to humans, give commands to spirits, to systems, to nature, to the elements.
Everything.
Like it goes beyond you just saying things. One other thing that I did then with my wife, I would say, well, let's you write these things, what we want. I'll find out. We'll write it down. I think we can write it. We'll put confession. We'll just say those things.
I just do it.
And at the end of the day, everything flipped in the place of 3 months, such that I remember walking into a university that I'd applied for the job. They called me in. I'd gone in, and there were like 6 people interviewing me, and I got them, and wait, it was 6 people. The director in general, the head of
That's a
the
lot.
PA, and at the end of that interview, the director stood up and ran after me and said to me that, wow, they want me to sign now.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, he didn't want to get home for how you say. But then I got home only to find out that the offer that I got from the Big Four organization also had been by it.
Wow.
So I called him and said, I have another offer. He said he was happy to have $10,000 more on the offer that I had.
Wow.
You understand? That just wanted me to sign that. They are happy to have, of course, I decided to go for the other offer. So you can imagine what confidence could do, from you is where you can't really do everything to the point where you are sought after. And also, of course, as a business analyst, you can understand you walk into your own where people are. And you host workshops, the energy that you have is reflected back to you.
That's right.
You see people sleeping, no matter how much coffee they've had, if that energy is not there. So confidence is critical to success.
It is.
And I feel that one of the best ways to do it is by speaking the things that you want to see. Speaking. And to be honest, even my daughter, I'll be going to drop my daughter every school then, and I'll be asking her to repeat it. So it became a normal thing that we would do.
Beautiful.
She would say whatever I say. She would repeat me. And within a space of time, I could hear all that parents say, the daughter is so confident. So I could hear that word coming back to me. So it's just a very, very important part for me. That's what worked for me.
Wow.
And I also try to separate myself from the wrong voices. There were some people that would say things I just would, separate myself from the wrong voices because, it just takes one wrong thing for you to trigger. You know what I mean?
It's okay. It grows.
So I try to find the right rings, the right minds to speak to. That also is something that I thought that really helped me to do that too.
That's very powerful, because I recall the first time I heard you talk, which was when we actually went to the AGM, myself and Tayo. Like, wow, I love how this person speaks. Tayo even said that. I'm not sure you can remember Tayo. Like,
No, I do.
I just speak to her, right? I'm like, yeah. Then the day you called, I'm like, wow. The conversation we had, I think it was like under an hour, like, just brainstorming. And I always tell my wife, when I talk to somebody that is profound in my mind, I'm like, wow,
it's solid.
I like this fella. This guy is solid. Like, I like the depth of, like when I have a good conversation, I don't want to say it on, like, it makes me happy, like, like, oh, I'm on the same wave. I love to have good conversation, and I know this one is just digressed in a bit. I see that you're a big reader as well. So what book are you gonna recommend? What are you reading at the moment?
My choice of books are funny, to be honest. Got a bit of a library here. But, one of the ones I'm reading at the moment, which is quite famous. I think I must have moved it.
Yeah, we move it around.
The Magic of Thinking Big.
I like that. Who wrote that?
I think it's by David Schwartz. The Magic of Thinking Big is the one I read, which it's really blowing me out of the water. Yeah, they're quite a number of books I got, and I've recently just spent some money on some extra books because I got some recommendations, so I just sort of bought a few books.
Amazing.
So that one is one I read. So I need of it.
There is big power in reading, because it just
absolutely
exposes and opens your mind.
It stretches your mind, really. Yes. And there's one saying that if you want to hide something from an African man, you put it in. But I think that now I'm finding out, more and more people, Africans, are reading a lot, and it's really great to see. But there's so much power in reading, and I can see the depth of your conversation. Somebody that has compounding knowledge from different sources, and that's very good. My own recommendation to you: influence. Influence. I'll send you. You should check it out. I think it's a very good book. Very
You
big,
should.
yeah,
You should.
yeah.
But before we digress, I think that there are so many key things that Thomas mentioned, because you don't know, I'm really big on like people appearing like confident, like show up, like
Yeah,
be your best self. But one thing that is that struck me is the power. You call it confession, I call it affirmation, right? So saying things, so you say it so much that even your mind and your brain don't have any reason to believe otherwise. And I think that's
let me say one. Sorry, she knows.
I know what you want to say, Noah.
So at the start of the year, I said to myself, I want to be the best at everything I do this year.
I agree.
Yeah, so Tyra will say, this year, I want to be the best at everything I do, right? And that positive affirmation, I've seen it firsthand work for her. And I think that I can relate to what you were saying. So that is a very profound thing to do. And even me, I'm taking notes mentally, like, I think I would need to do this more. But yeah, Tyra.
Yeah, no, it's because I think that it's a very big thing to do. Obviously, there's part of faith as well, but as humans, you also have some work to do to ensure that everything works together. So just hearing you say it and even cascading it down to your daughter, for me, is like so beautiful. And I'm hoping there's someone out there picking on this as well. If there's anything that you want to do well, it needs to start from yourself. If people can see through you, and the energy that you take into rooms is what will throw the people's energy as well. If you come in there and like, hey, and you're just talking really low energy, it's like, we don't know if this person knows what they're doing, but you go in there with like full force, everyone would sit there like, hey, I need to listen to this man. I need to listen to this woman. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of, because I could see like some of your recognitions and some of the things that you've been able to do in your life as well. What connection does that have with your journey with God? Because I see like you seem to be very vast with the word, like just going through some of the Bible verses, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to do.
That is beautiful. I'm jealous. I need to add that a lot to my words as well.
I mean, I know the word, but I probably wouldn't know where I can find it in the Bible. I just know them. So just like hearing you like, this part says this, I think that's really beautiful. What's your approach to getting to that stage in life? Like, how can you confidently, and I ask this because I'm of the understanding that your true prayer comes from you praying with the word. You'll be repeating a lot of things if you're just praying, like, just saying the words. But when you connect it back to the Bible and ask God to manifest that word into your life, it's more powerful. How have you come to that stage where you have it stored in your mind? You know exactly where the word can be found, and like you can leverage it when you're when you're talking like this or when you're praying. Like, how did you come to that stage?
I pretty much will say that for that, it's not. So I'll first answer the first part of that question, which is why are you where you are? And I can say to you that 100% I would not be here if God was not involved in my story. Understand that every success that I've seen in my life, every progress that I've seen, God single-handedly moved things in. There's another conversation I'm going to be talking about maybe after this, but what I would say is that I've seen God move in ways that you knew the way that literally just proved to me that, man, I mean, I will be a fool to say that I've not experienced God in it. In his power. It started from when I was a child, the sort of things, because we used to, follow my parents, tell me about fighting them. I didn't want to go to church with going to. I wanted to like do things differently. Well, I feel that the new dimension of my life started when I gave my life to Christ. And what the beauty of that is not just in what I have become. Understand? When I look at my family, I look at what's happening in my younger brother's life. He's a very big man, in Nigeria. I look at my younger sister, I look at my elder sister, I look at my mom, I look at my, like my family members. I look at the impact that has had, in their lives. The benefit goes beyond just one person. And now let's think of all, many of the friends I've had and the ways that God has used me to help them in different ways. It might not even be me knowing on it. I might just say something that God uses for their benefit. And so, for me, that's, and I also believe that I'm still in the work. I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect. So when I look at my life and I look at the nature of the things I believe were right, how useless I behaved at some point, how that helped me, So when I look at my life and where I am today, I mean, there's nothing that I can say that I've achieved that God does not have an impact in. Career line, I mean, at the moment where I share with God systems for me, things I can't begin to count. And I said earlier on that all these people were connected. I've seen it firsthand. How God used it for prosperity, my family, like many things. So God is very important. And to the second question, it's about the foundation that I had as I gave my life to Christ. I used to have, I used to be part of various groups. There was one that was called the Entire Ministries. Back then, another one of Solomon used to sing. Then Portus Christian Youth, the OE Waters. So we had various groups that I belonged to, and of course helped me. And what had happened in those groups was like there were challenges that we would challenge ourselves. So we would challenge ourselves to have conversations. Listen to someone. So there was a group of people that shared similar values, and we would sort of challenge ourselves in what we knew about God and what we were to. So for a young believer who was pretty much just in that list and just seeing them do things, not like I got it all screwed. I mean, like all perfect, but I was just doing whatever they were doing. Then later on, it's another extreme of just doing things our own way, and not God's way. And so I've sort of painful circles identified, man, that there's a difference when you sort of trust God. That's how you live your lives. And there's things you can achieve. Because the concept of faith, what it does to you is like we're talking about wealth. We're talking about prosperity. It really delivers that to you. Or there's region between is about you trusting. You understand what I mean? Because that's what builds your confidence, and that I think is what brings reward. Even in obeying some things that restored you. I listened to one of the podcasts you've done when we were saying that when you were at hostel, you were sitting at the church and you were listening to what they were saying, and the things you were hearing, and you were getting this very responsible state of things. And so I just want to say that for me, trusting God and His words has helped me. Like I mentioned to you how it helped me out of depression. That's one very, I want to reach out. If there's anyone out there that perhaps is going through that and you perhaps need help, to be honest, perhaps I have a few, confessions I can share with you as well. But God actually saves.
Wow. Powerful. Thank you so much. Just switching gear a bit. So, I know you're somebody that likes to do great things for the community. And I see the root of where that came from, your experience benefiting from that process as well. Because some people are like, oh, I don't want to involve the community. Count me out. This is not I just want to come here, do my thing. I don't want those evil people, just focus on my own life, which is, there's merit to that. But in your experience, what are some of the benefits of just being part of the community, especially for Africans, right? What are the benefits in there? And then in terms of prosperity, so doing things together, right? Business, sharing ideas, networking, there was that beautiful event we were us celebrating, showcasing our culture last weekend, which was beautiful. That's one of the things, and it was so nice for me personally. First time I'm seeing so many Nigerians in a room. Where I live here in Queensland, I'm the only, like, I only see myself, the black person in the whole, is a developing area, but like, I don't see a lot of Africans, so sometimes you're so odd, like, you're noticeable, like, they know that, oh, okay, this is the only black person in this area. You know what I mean? You don't have your clan and all of that. But yeah, just circling back, what are some of the benefits of that community?
Like I mentioned earlier, you see, we are more connected than we know. Is that what I mean? It's sort of things that can happen if we synergize, as opposed to when we compete. And I was like, an instant, when you look at what the Jews are doing, it might not be popular at the time for people to mention names and all that, but when you look at what they're doing, when you look at what the Indians are doing, when you look at what the Chinese are doing, you understand what I mean? They had to grow beyond themselves. It has to come to that point where you have to think beyond what you alone can go. Because you're very limited. You understand what I mean? You're very limited, And I with all due respect, to all of the people that had the very terrible experiences, perhaps I was like that at some point. Like, and when I hadn't really been to like, I don't want to really relate with those people. But what I've also understood is you can't bring the water away with the baby. Like, there's a lot of value. There's a life there. If the water is that you take it out of the water and you clean the baby. That's truth. So when we begin to identify the benefits that reside in reuniting, I feel that we'll now begin to identify that, man, the water can go, but the baby can't go. Do you understand what I mean? So it's because we've seen it happen. But for me, I'm happy to be a part of showing everyone out there that thing. It can happen. And it's in the premise of the beautiful experience I've had with people in this community. Like I mentioned a few names earlier, Professor Kesoni, even Dr. Koladi, if you look at the amount of good work that these people have done, up to this moment, you're talking about blessing, even President at the moment, the amount of work that community is doing, I feel that we need to get to a point where we sort of move close, and I would understand, like I said earlier, the experiences that I had. You might have had an interaction with one person and it sounded too good, or it was just, it left a really bad taste in their mouth. But what I would say is that as opposed to one experience that was not a friendly one, you can also look and find many other interactions that you can have, which is also positive, And so when you look at the benefits you can have, I don't want to talk too much, but there's some things that are in the pipeline that are coming. Like we make you realize that it's better for you to associate, because one of the good things that will do to us is the fact that we're in a foreign land, right now, but we have to unite in such a way that we have a voice. We should not be divided. When we're divided, the numbers work against us. But when we're united, we stand a chance of doing massive things. I've seen Nigerians, when Nigerians decide to unite. When you look at the ecosystem of what's going on in Nigeria, you see the way the tech industry in Nigeria is beginning to transform from Boston to Germany. Like, so, you look around and you see, like, what is happening, and the ripple effect of all of that, which is happening at the moment, come back in another time. In fact, it's too far. You understand what I mean? So there's a lot to benefit, and I feel that also we have to look, let our opinions be rounded. If someone doesn't have the person, you will always find people in that community as well, which will,
fantastic. I mean, you talk about the Jew system of, communalism trade. Do you have a view? Do you have a view on that? Do you know about that system? Because there's something I've read about it. I don't know if you. What is your understanding?
Just check.
Yeah. There's a book called Jewish Phenomena, I think, which pretty much talks about the influence of the Jew and how they've been able to build intergenerational wealth over time. That book is a really read. If anyone can get their hands on that, it can perhaps just give you an idea of what's possible. And when we decide to, work in a culture. And when you look at our history and our culture, you can understand that it looks like we have a lot of things that work against us. But at the end of the day, when we look at where we sit today as Nigerians, we're already out of Nigeria.
That's
We're
right.
here. The see that looks like you, or people like you and I. The Nigerian community.
Different.
So that's what I mean.
Different.
There's nothing happening in Nigeria that's happening in Australia. Our reality is different. Diaspora. You understand what I mean? So here we choose, like I said earlier, you say it can be done, you're right. You say it can be done, you're right. The interesting thing now is that if you say it can be done, you're not beginning to identify that elements, steps that open to begin to work and begin to that truly this thing can work, and that's when you've already taken that action, the first step, We're talking about that conversation, earlier on about that project we wanted to. Can I tell you that yesterday I got a call? We needed one person. The final person literally called themselves.
Amazing.
We did tell them. They presented themselves.
Amazing.
With the profile that we needed.
Amazing.
Like, we need chocolates. The person called.
Yeah.
So, and I tell you that when you choose to take the first step in the right direction, things will begin to work together. The first step is very, very important. It might not be a perfect step, but action in the right direction.
Profound. Profound. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that this has been honestly mind-blowing. One thing that I would love to talk about is the fact that oftentimes, we understand life backwards, and a lot of things wouldn't make sense until perhaps a couple of years after. I guess if you could go back to your younger self as an example, what advice would you pretty much give to your younger self, particularly around navigating the complexities of living, in Australia as an immigrant, from a career point of view, even from like family dynamics? What advice would you give to your younger self? Take actions without fear.
I think I would have told myself to take action without fear. Let me see. I limited myself so much. I hid behind unnecessary things impossible. I believed a lie that some things were not possible. I remember 1991 where I had a book. I called it the Vision Book. And I had that book and I read through that because the things I was writing into those books and I believed were happening.
Wow.
And then I didn't take an action because I didn't believe I could achieve them. Do it. I wish I'd taken an action, whether it was possible or not, but at least I'd taken an action about time. So just to let you understand that no matter how beautiful the plan is, if it is without an action, it's flat.
I mean,
and it's wasted.
I love the precision. Please,
I love the precision.
If you're not taking this note, I mean, for me, one thing I'm passionate about, just in terms of you talking about taking an action. So I see a lot of people who are comfortable being comfortable, right? They just want to do the things that is safe. Oh, they said it's care or this thing job we can do in this country and make more. Okay, cool. I don't want to change. I'm too old. This is just it. And I kind of like spotlight some of the effects. So for example, there are some people that are now, they've transitioned through sync skills and everything. Now, what they're going to be telling their children is different because their children now can see the type of people they mingle, they talk to, the kind of conversation that they have and what is possible. Now, it's going to correct the generation, the coming after all, that now it is not only this type of job we can do. My dad was doing this, or I have seen people do this now. I am not going to be aspiring to do, that thing that they said, and which is one problem we wanted to solve. Like when we came, started seeing skills. Like, there are too many people who are suffering from these limiting beliefs of this is the only place you can find, this is the only type of job you can do. And they are stopped. Some people today, I still have conversation with them. I can't do it though. This is, I can't, And what you're saying, there are so many things that will scare us, but not taking action is a killer in itself.
I agree. Fear kills faster than failure. I always say to people, we would say, no, as fair reward is punch fear in the face. Do it scared, do it worried, just do it. Just do it. At least you would have gotten that out of the way and never be the person that stops you from trying. Like, don't stop yourself. Do it, get an outcome, and you learn from it. Now, it's about twice I've met you virtually and one in person. And in those conversations, you've spoken very highly of your daughter. And I just want to understand that relationship. So, like, I think the first time you were like, oh, my baby girl, my daughter, I've got a daughter. And today you're like, oh, I taught my daughter, my wife, etc. I want to delve into that daughter a little bit because, there are lots of parents living in this country and a lot of them strive to have like really beautiful relationship with their children. And they're unsure how to start to, from baby, how do you start to build that relationship, combining with like such a busy schedule, combining with like lots of different things that would happen in life. What would you say to someone listening to us right now, trying to navigate, I want to build a healthy relationship with my child. I don't want a father-child. I want genuinely friendship where the daughter would come to me, where we can genuinely have conversations, where I know they will love me, not because I get better them alone, but they genuinely just love me and we have that love for each other. What would you say, like, what's the strategy for parents listening to us, especially in this part of the world, to build that sort of like strong relationship with the children?
Oh, thank you very much, Tayo. So, for me, I like to, more like a lot of the things that are happening to me right now is drawn from history, from where did it all start for me? So I remember growing up, and I remember my dad putting me on this neck, and we will go, because in OADV, that's where I grew up, the quarters there, and we will go to Pit Theatre. There's a place there where they used to steam dramas, when they're showing cows plays and the likes and all of that, and they used to do it there. And my dad would put me on this neck, and beside that place there used to be like music department for the university, and they, my dad took me there so I could learn how to play piano. And that relationship that he would be going to the farm. We used to have a farm. He would bring me in his car, we'll go together, and those sort of things that we used to do, But the memory right now is golden for me. You understand what I mean? My mom, for all of the things that, I went through growing up, and I could see how my mom treated herself to just make sure, and those memories with my parents, I think about them right now. My mom came into Australia, she was returning, and the best moments we've had were the moments spent, even for my daughter, spent with her. Yeah. So drawing onto those sort of experiences, for me, one of the most, like I mentioned earlier, my identity came from sonship. I also understand that my daughter's identity would come from the confidence of the growth that she gets from me, And to a large extent, who she's becoming, I feel like one of the most sacred responsibilities I could have is being a parent, and despite being super busy, like, with life, an average day for me is like 12 hours every day. Do you understand? Of work.
Right.
But it always have out that me at halftime. You know what I mean? And by the moment she's coming to tell me that my dad is working so hard, So for me, that in itself is really awesome. And I remember when she was born, I held her for the first time, and I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to feel. Being the father from the first hour, I didn't know how to respond to that. But where things started changing for me was when she'll be crying, and I'll hold her in my hand, and she'll stop crying and sleep. And here I was, from the library to school to me, and I'll be knackered. I'll be right there, she's on my chest, I'll be both sleep, And that was where the relationship started. So today now, and I can tell how bonded we become, And I thought it was just me, but I found out that also in ourselves as well, like in one lot of the things that she was doing, she also, the confidence that she was having, and the things she was doing was related to how much love she felt, For instance, she does little athletics, and we're going for a tournament in Vandenberg, and she ran, she came second, but she had always wanted to win. She was crying.
That is so sweet.
That didn't make you proud.
Wow.
20-year-old knew that, you know.
I'm always proud
And
of
for me,
you.
I'm like, yes, me. I was like, don't worry about that, you know.
Wow.
So what told her that? Like,
Uh,
so she was actually doing something to make me proud. You know, like a child sitting your own child. So for me, I always would think like
yeah.
everything that we have, somehow God has made it that our lives are limited time. It's a two-dimensional thing. Our life and time, you know, from one end to the other. You know, I wish it could be more than that. But what I see is the fact that when our time has passed and it's our time, she should be able to have the best of the memories. Yeah, that's all I mean. And also to think that when there's a cultural difference from the land of where she came from and where she is and the corner of the skin, it's very important that she's confident.
Very.
Do you understand? For a girl child, you know, it's very important that she's confident. So it became one of the things that we decided, we had to make sure that we equip her with the skills that will make her succeed applied in our own time, you know, and we're trying to do that at every level.
Beautiful.
So she's really special to me, to be honest. I mean, it's one of the best of all the hats that we are.
Would you
it's like
say
one of
that
the best for me, like
the nature of your job, even though you grind 12 hours, 14 hours, do you think that is still helped by the fact of like the nature of job you do? I mean, you can work from home. I reckon you work some days from home. And you know, she can pop in your office while you're working and you know, kind of like mess with you and all of that. Yeah. So do you think that has also helped
Played a
in any
role.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has, to be honest. Someone said something interesting recently. They said it's work-life balance, like should be life-work balance. One of the beautiful things I've enjoyed with my role of being that I have this freedom of deciding how I want to work, so I can do 100% of what you know. And what that now does is that I can drop her off at the bus station. She can take a bus if she wants, you know, like spend time when she comes. I can prep the dinner, you can talk, chat, and she understands what time she goes to bed. I can return back. You know, so it's like working around that has really helped me a lot, and being a part of my life as well. In already the days I'm over work, I'll be working hard, ready things like so. I love it now, like because of like I don't want to really miss out on this because most of the things that matter to me, like when I lost that job that time, it didn't matter anymore. Despite how I thought this way goals and everything, like, you know, it didn't matter anymore. The things that mattered were still kind to me. You know, those were the moments that, you know, that give me a bit of, peace. So think about it down the line right now. You know, when you reach retirement, you should be thinking about a job that you're replaceable. You know, so maybe this, like, you know what I mean? This is a business I didn't own. Like, you know, I've seen people that have business that can't transfer to the next generation because it's shit. It is. So, like, to think that relationship is critical for me. It's critical. And we have a responsibility to make sure all the skills that she has going into her life, we hand it over to her, you know, to help her navigate life, to live a successful life. So it's, for me, I always think into that. I always try my best to make sure that I
super powerful.
It's necessary for us.
We have a tradition here where so the last guest, which was not too long ago, actually left you a question, a gift. Yeah, and the question really is: so, Toma, what place, what reward do you anticipate when you meet your maker? And it's just great because you are also a person of faith, you're Christian. Just to repeat the question, what place, what reward do you anticipate when you meet your maker?
That's the gift we've got for you too. It is.
Well, no, that's a really powerful one, to be honest. I think to be able to answer that question, you know, first we have to identify what is vulnerable. You know, in the side of we humans, what's valuable? Is it about wealth? Is it about what we get? Is it about pride? Is it about, so, but I feel it's functional to think like, and what does God really want? I feel that the preservation of humanity is one of the things that God really wants. When you take a look at the scriptures, the Bible talks about, they say, God, we did this when they got to see me. They said, oh man, like all the things you thought you did, like really doesn't matter. That you just see it like, so think about it. It's not a function of what we got. It's a function of like, did you really take care of the other people? They just like flock. Did you, we thought I said, as long as there's one amongst you, the least amongst you. So for me, I feel the responsibility is just beyond we having everything to ourselves. And that's where the concept of light comes in. When I say think like, it has to go beyond, it has to always be beyond me.
That's it.
Yeah.
It has to be beyond me. If it can't be me, that's it's during it's not it. You know what I mean? Life has to be that it is beyond me. And the same firsthand the way people
I'm sorry about that.
For instance, I lost one of my very good friends recently, Maria Lisa, and she's she's awesome. And I remember, the last the ceremony that was had for the burial that we had for her. And I remember the comments people were making. I was like, man, she lived beyond herself. And I think that's how I want to bury it. Hey, that's an impact. How much of light was I when I was pretty much. And I think that's what God wants himself, because at the end of the day, it's all what impacts do the album humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm not being just about, you have to be a Christian. No, it's a function of humanity. Because God created humanity. We're making his likeness. So forget about the fact that it has to be only a Christian or only a Muslim. No, it has to be humanity. Everyone out there.
It is.
And that's because his scope is beyond your church. So for me, that's where I want to be. I want to be able to say that at least here in Australia, everywhere around the world, I've been able to give, my best.
Amazing.
This within all resources.
So what gift would you love to leave our upcoming guests? What would you like to leave them? Same question you want to transfer over?
Very good question.
Great.
Same
I'll be sure to
question.
remember.
That
I actually
was
like
the
that.
first.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any final advice you want to share, to our community, just to encourage them?
I think my final words would be what I said earlier. We are much more connected than we know. You know what I mean? Much more connected. Like these sort of things that you're doing, you can imagine the amount of benefits it will have in that generation and no one else. So how much have you been able to? How much
extend that to people?
How much grace have you really extended? And also, I'm learning from that as well, because that has to be much graceful. You can't expect that every time when someone wrongs you, you throw out your swag. That's another thing.
Yeah.
We have to be graceful. We have to look beyond the mess. So for me, I think that's it.
I love this conversation. It's gonna be a rewind, replay, iteration of this conversation. Thank you so much for
such a short time. Thank you very much for your time and thank you.
The Conversation by Sync Skills.